Good evening and welcome to News Channel 8. I'm Jerome Aegean, and here's some of the top stories we have for you tonight. Today is Bloody Wednesday as the governor gives 600 government employees the axe. A cold case is solved after 10 years, and former Governor Juan Luis is placed in state at Government House. These stories and more are up next on News Channel 8. In our top story tonight, the governor has finally done it. Governor John DeYoung has fired 600 government employees. Let's go to the press conference earlier today on St. Thomas.
Good morning. Thank you. It has been my custom to hold a press conference on the day I submitted the budget, but I did not do so deliberately this year, so I could continue my discussions with the senators to determine if changes to my proposed course of action was needed and warranted. This budget preparation was far more difficult than previous ones, as it required a fundamental shift away from how we've done things and required us to look at how we were going to do them going forward with less resources and far fewer people. Our revenues, which are the baseline as to the level of expenditures we can incur, were completely decimated by the effects of the global financial crisis and the Great Recession. Not just in tourism, but across all sectors of our economy. Tax payments have been reduced because economic activity and profits have been substantially off past levels. We've been vigorous in these efforts these past 3 years to avoid the most dire of consequences that resulted from these reduced revenues by resorting to both borrowing to cover our operating expenses and using as much of the assistance of federal government, such as the ARA funds, to sustain operations and government employment. But now there are no more federal dollars to buffer general government services, and there's no more borrowing capacity that's available to us. Most, well over 2/3 of our local budget is personnel expenses, and the benefits that we have been made available to our workers over the past decades. To put it simply, to have a major impact on reducing the cost of the Virgin Islands government, one must either permanently cut the amount paid to Virgin Islands government workers, or reduce the government workforce. That is simple and unavoidable truth of the matter. But despite all our past efforts, we find ourselves facing a remaining deficit for this fiscal year 2011, of approximately $17.4 million, and a vastly larger $90 million deficit for the upcoming fiscal year. The fiscal year 2012 budget of $731 million submitted balances expenses with projected revenues through a reduced workforce, unpaid holidays, a continuous focus on cost containment, tax and fee increases, improved collections and delinquent receivables, and a level of economic growth. To address this year's fiscal deficit and to cover a portion of fiscal year 2012, I have authorized the dismissal of approximately 600 central government workers. Notices to these workers will be delivered shortly, and the executive officers of the government have been preparing to operate their budgets and agencies in the absence of these workers.
And in other news, a murder suspect has been named in a 10-year-old murder case that had gone cold on St. Thomas. Here's Rodney Carrard with more.
Good day, this is Rodney F. Carrard, Senior Police Chief for the St. Thomas St. John District. On December 26, 2001, at approximately 4:25 a.m., officers responded to shots fired in the area of the Market Square East, in specific the parking lot area of Costulus. Upon their arrival, they found a male later identified as being Mr. Kenrick A. Mason had been shot multiple times and had succumbed to his injuries on the scene. On May 29, 2009, the investigation into Mr. Mason's death was reassigned to the cold case squad. Based on the investigation, suspects were identified. On Monday, June 13, 2011, arrest warrants for 2 suspects were obtained through the Honorable Judge Adam G. Christian of the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands. On that same day, at approximately 6:46 p.m., Rashim A. Morton, 32 years of age, a native of St. Thomas, was arrested based on one of the warrants issued by Judge Christian and was charged with first-degree murder, first-degree assault, possession of an unlicensed firearm during the commission of a crime of violence, and reckless endangerment. He was processed and remanded to the Bureau of Corrections pending his advice of rights hearing. The second suspect in this matter, Reynaldo Rivera Jr., 37 years of age, also a St. Thomas native, who an arrest warrant was also issued for by Judge Christian, is presently incarcerated in a correctional facility in the United States on unrelated charges. He will eventually be extradited back to the United States Virgin Islands to face the same charges as Mr. Morton upon his release. This investigation is ongoing and further arrests are anticipated. I'm asking anyone with information on this murder or any other murder to call the Cold Case Squad detectives at 340-714-9218 or 340-714-9219 or Crime Stoppers USVI at 1-800-222-TIPS. That's 1-800-222-8477.
And again, thanks to St. Thomas Police Chief Rodney Carrard. And probably one of the most beloved Virgin Islands governors of all time was placed in state at Government House on St. Croix earlier today. Let's take a look. And again, our condolences to the Juan Louis family. And when we come back from this break, we'll take a look at the mighty Caribs as they walk the aisle. Stay with us on Channel 8.